scrap of land in the world, an island of just 50 square miles, 2,300 miles west of the coast of Chile and 1,300 miles east of the nearest inhabited Polynesian island. And it's famous for those gigantic stone statues that sent two of you and me to Easter Island and the rest of you to see the pictures. Stone statues weighing up to 80 tons and up to 33 feet high that were carved and somehow dragged and transported up to 12 miles and then erected into a vertical position on platforms against the sea. All this done by people without metal tools, without draft animals, without wheels, without any power other than their own muscle power. How did they do it? So the collapse of Easter Island Society and how they erected and then how they tore down their own statues, because when Europeans arrived, here comes a Thomas Mann-like sentence where I've lost memory of my main verb. When Europeans arrived on Easter Island in the year 1722, this was the Dutch navigator Jacob Roggeveen, Easter Island looked like the last island where you would expect a great civilization erecting gigantic statues, because Roggeveen noted there were no trees on the island. And yet, without machines or wheels, surely to erect those statues and to drag them 12 miles, the islanders needed wood, whether to make sleds or rollers or levers, and surely they needed also wood to make rope of natural fiber. But here's an island without any trees, no way to get wood for transport or for rope. There was no way that they could erect the statues. And in fact, the islanders were in the process of dragging down, tearing down, breaking the statues that their ancestors had erected at such enormous effort, with the result that in 1843, the last of the hundreds of statues was torn down and broken by the islanders themselves. So, romantic mystery. Why did the Easter Islanders erect these great statues, and why, having erected them, did they tear them all down and break them? The answer to that romantic mystery has emerged from archaeological studies of the last 20 years, which show that when Easter was first settled by Europeans, it was not the barren, treeless wasteland that we see today, but it was instead covered by a subtropical forest that included the world's biggest palm tree, now extinct. And so the Polynesian settlers of Easter Island proceeded to chop down trees for the same reason that we do today and that other peoples do. They chop down trees for clearing land for agriculture, and for timber for construction, and for fuel for firewood, and also to make canoes with which to go out to the ocean to harpoon tuna and dolphin that were their main sources of meat and protein. And the Easter Islanders continued chopping down trees until around the year 1680. They chopped down the last tree on the island, at which point they were now out of wood to make the sleds and the levers and to have the rope with which they dragged and transported and erected the giant statues. So from 1680 there were no more statues erected, but without any wood, the islanders could no longer build canoes, so they couldn't go out to sea to harpoon tuna and dolphin. And that meant that for protein, for meat, they turned to the only large animal on the island, namely Homo sapiens. Easter Island Society collapsed in a civil war between the 12 clans that whenever a clan triumphed over another clan, the victorious clan would tear down and break the statues of the defeated clan. And in this epidemic of cannibalism and civil warfare, from those days handed down on Easter Island is the oral memory of the worst insult that an Easter Islander could shriek at another Easter Islander in those days if you wanted to make someone else really furious. What you said to them to drive them out of their mind with rage is, "The flesh of your mother sticks between my teeth." So that's the end of Easter Island Society, and a collapse, a stark collapse. The population of Easter Island decreased by something like 90%, and the formerly politically and culturally unified island collapsed in this epidemic of civil war. Of all the prehistoric collapses that I've talked about, I find that the collapse of Easter Island is the one that grabs people most, because the metaphor is so obvious. Easter Island, isolated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. When Easter Society collapsed, there was no one else to whom the islanders could turn for help, nowhere else that they could flee. And people see the metaphor. If we on Earth today mess up our own planet, there's no galaxy to which we can turn for help and no other galaxy out there to which we can flee. In the last couple of years, I've been teaching a course on the material of my book to my UCLA undergraduates. They recognized the significance of a problem that had escaped me. Namely, how on earth did the people do these self-destructive things like cutting down all their trees? And in particular, my UCLA students have asked me, what do you think the islander who chopped down the last palm tree said as he or she was chopping down the last palm tree? And my UCLA students have made a number of suggestions for what they said when they were cutting down the last palm tree. Maybe the person who did it said, "Never fear, technology will solve our problems by finding a substitute for wood." Or perhaps that person chopping down the last tree said, "This is my private property, this tree is mine, private property rights, respect them, I can do with it whatever I please, keep the big government of the chiefs off my back." Or, my UCLA students suggested, maybe the person who chopped down the last tree said, "The fears of you environmentalists are exaggerated. You don't know what's going on in some other part of the island. Perhaps there are still trees out there. A ban on logging would be premature. We need more research." A couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago, I received an email from someone who said, "I know what the islander who cut down the last tree said as he was doing it. He said, 'Never fear, have faith, God will somehow provide for us.'" So that's the collapse of Easter Island society. But my book